Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to speak about something that's often pushed aside in our fast-paced, pressure-filled world: the importance of embracing your authentic self. In a time when the noise around us is deafening, when voices from all corners of society tell us how we should think, look, or act, there is a quiet power that lies in the courage to be yourself. Authenticity is more than just a buzzword, it's a way of being. It is the willingness to stand tall in the truth of who you are without apology, without fear, and without the need for approval from others. But let me be clear, the path to authenticity is not always easy. It's a journey that requires courage, patience, and a deep willingness to explore your true nature. When you begin this journey, you might find yourself confronting uncomfortable truths about yourself. You might have to shed identities that no longer serve you, letting go of the expectations placed upon you by others. As women, we've all felt the weight of external expectations. Society, family, friends, sometimes even well-intentioned mentors try to shape us into a mold that fits their idea of who we should be. You might be told you should look a certain way, behave a certain way, or live up to some predetermined set of rules. But here's the truth: your power lies in stepping away from these pressures and embracing your own truth. This process can be incredibly challenging. It takes deep introspection and a willingness to confront the parts of you that might have been buried for years. But in that reflection, you'll find clarity. You'll come to realize that the life you've been living, based on others' expectations, isn't truly yours to begin with. But this journey of authenticity requires vulnerability, a word that is often misunderstood. Vulnerability is not weakness. In fact, vulnerability is a profound form of strength. It is the courage to show up as you truly are, to allow yourself to be seen in all your imperfections, to let go of the need for external validation. There is a quiet strength in being vulnerable. It says, "This is who I am, and I am enough." Now, I want to address something that often holds women back from embracing their true selves: perfectionism. We live in a world that tells us to be flawless, but the reality is this perfection is an illusion. When you let go of the idea that you have to be perfect, you free yourself. You begin to live from a place of true freedom, a place where authenticity reigns. With authenticity comes the need to set boundaries. It's a powerful act of self-respect and protection. Boundaries allow you to guard your peace and maintain your sense of self, even when the world around you may try to pull you in a million different directions. They help you stay grounded in who you are, and they give you the space to nurture your growth. This growth, this process of coming into your authentic self, also requires inner confidence. Confidence that isn't built on validation from others, but on your own belief that you are enough. This confidence grows from self-compassion, resilience, and a deep acceptance of your worth. When you truly embrace your authentic self, you realize that you are worthy of everything life has to offer, just as you are. But the beauty of embracing your authenticity doesn't just stop with you. It extends outward. By living your truth, you inspire others to do the same. You create a ripple effect, a quiet revolution where women, one by one, begin to shed their fears and doubts and step into their true power. The more women who embrace their authentic selves, the stronger we become, not just as individuals, but as a collective force that can change the world. So my message to you today is this: embrace yourself. Be true to who you are, even when the world tells you otherwise. Let go of the illusion of perfection. Set your boundaries and cultivate a confidence that comes from within. In doing so, you will not only transform your own life, but inspire those around you to do the same. There is power in your authenticity. Never forget that. Thank you. In a world where we are constantly bombarded with images of perfection and success, it is easy to forget the most powerful thing we can ever be ourselves. There is a certain power in authenticity, in living as the true expression of who we are, without fear, without hesitation. But here's the thing, it's not always easy. We are raised in a society that celebrates fitting in, that encourages us to follow a prescribed path, and in doing so, we often lose sight of the unique essence that makes us who we are. Every day, women are told who they should be, how they should look, and how they should behave. We are taught to present an image that's been defined by others, often at the cost of our own self-expression. But authenticity doesn't come from conformity. It comes from breaking free of these constraints, from understanding that the only way to truly live fully is to embrace the full spectrum of who we are, our quirks, our flaws, our strengths, and yes, even our weaknesses. The power of authenticity is rooted in self-awareness, the willingness to look inward, to confront the parts of ourselves that may have been buried under the weight of expectation. It's in acknowledging that, in our rawest, most honest form, we are enough. Not because we conform to some ideal, but because we are uniquely, powerfully ourselves. And when you embrace this truth, when you begin to live authentically, something extraordinary happens. You stop searching for external approval because you realize that your worth isn't determined by anyone else. Your value isn't based on whether or not you meet someone else's standards. It's in the very act of standing in your truth unapologetically. This is the true power of authenticity, not to be liked or accepted, but to be so grounded in who you are that you no longer need validation from the outside world. It's about releasing the fear that has held you back and stepping into the freedom of your true self. The woman who embraces her authentic self doesn't shrink to fit into a mold. She expands to fill the space she was always meant to occupy. And the most remarkable thing is, when you live this way, it's not just a gift for yourself, it becomes a gift for everyone around you. You inspire others to step into their own power, to show up as they are, and to take up the space they deserve. There is an undeniable ripple effect that begins when you choose to be unapologetically you. And that, my friends, is the kind of power we all need to embrace. The journey of self-discovery is one of the most profound, yet often daunting, paths we can walk. It is not a destination, but a continuous unfolding, a process that asks us to peel back layers and face truths that may not always be comfortable. There is a beauty in this journey, but there is also a struggle to understand who we really are beneath the layers of expectations, influences, and roles we've been given throughout our lives. It starts with a simple question: who am I really? This is not the question we ask in passing or the one we answer lightly. It is the question that digs deep into the heart of our being, challenging us to examine the stories we've told ourselves and the identities we've constructed. We've all been conditioned in one way or another, told how to behave, what to believe, who to be. But what if the answers we've been seeking were never found in external validation, but instead within ourselves? The journey of self-discovery demands that we become observers of our own lives, reflect on our choices, and in doing so, learn to listen to the quiet voice within. It's easy to get distracted by the loud opinions of others, to get swept away by the demands of the world. But true self-discovery requires the courage to step back, to pause and ask, what do I truly want? What do I truly value? And most importantly, what does my soul long for, beyond the expectations and the noise? This process can be messy. It's not always a straight line forward. There will be moments of doubt, of confusion, where you feel uncertain about what comes next. The path will twist, turn, and sometimes you may feel as though you've lost your way. But that's the beauty of it. Self-discovery is not a perfect path, it is a winding road, and each twist is a lesson. Each challenge is an opportunity to learn something new about who you are and what you are capable of. There will be moments when you are confronted by parts of yourself that you may not like, parts that you've tried to suppress or deny. These are the moments when you must be kind to yourself, when you must give yourself permission to be imperfect. Self-discovery is not about becoming flawless, it's about becoming real. It's about finding strength in your vulnerability and courage in your uncertainty. It's about recognizing that you don't have to have it all figured out to be worthy. It's also about learning to trust yourself. Trust in your instincts, your intuition, your ability to make decisions that align with your true self. Too often, we've been taught to rely on the opinions of others to guide our choices. But when you begin to trust yourself, you realize that you already have all the wisdom you need. It is within you, waiting to be acknowledged. And the beauty of this journey is that it doesn't end. The more you uncover, the more you realize there is always more to discover. It's an ongoing process, a continual evolution of who you are. There is no final destination because you are always growing, always changing, always becoming more of who you were meant to be. Embrace this evolution. Celebrate the unfolding. Because each step you take toward discovering your true self is a victory, a triumph over the noise of the world, a testament to your courage to face yourself and walk in the truth of who you are. The weight of external expectations is one of the heaviest burdens we carry as women. From the moment we are born, society begins to shape us, telling us what we should do, how we should look, and who we should become. Our families, our peers, our workplaces, even strangers on the street, everyone has an opinion about who we are supposed to be. We're often taught to seek approval, to conform, to be good in the eyes of others. But the reality is, these expectations can drown out our own inner voice. They create a shadow over our authenticity, forcing us to live according to rules that were never meant for us. You see, we're conditioned to believe that our value lies in meeting these external standards, that if we don't measure up, we are somehow less worthy, less capable, or less deserving of love and success. But when we live in constant pursuit of meeting others' expectations, we lose touch with who we truly are. We start to shrink. We start to hide parts of ourselves, believing they are not enough, not acceptable, or not worthy of being seen. The truth is, in that process of trying to fit into someone else's mold, we lose our power. Overcoming external expectations begins with the realization that these standards were never designed with us in mind. They are not our truth. They are projections of other people's desires, their biases, their experiences. And when we live by them, we give up our agency, our autonomy, and our sense of self. We may gain the approval of others, but we lose our authenticity, our unique essence that can never be replicated or replaced. To break free, we must first acknowledge that we don't owe anyone a version of ourselves that doesn't reflect who we truly are. It starts with making a conscious decision to stop looking outside ourselves for validation and instead begin to look within. This doesn't mean we reject all feedback or disregard the wisdom of others. It means that we learn to distinguish between advice that supports our growth and expectations that diminish our individuality. We must ask ourselves, does this expectation align with my values? Does it empower me? Does it allow me to be the truest, most unapologetic version of myself? It takes courage to face the fear that comes with stepping away from the expectations others have placed upon us. It means embracing the discomfort of being misunderstood or judged. But the truth is, when you live authentically, you will never be everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. Not everyone is meant to walk with you on this journey. And the more you try to please everyone, the more you lose the very essence that makes you remarkable. There will be times when you feel the pressure to conform. You may feel the weight of judgment or criticism, especially when you step outside the narrow confines of what others expect. But remember this, you were not created to live according to someone else's standards. You were created to live your truth, to be the person only you can be. When you let go of the need to meet other people's expectations, you free yourself from the chains that have held you back for far too long. Living authentically is not just about rejecting others' opinions, it's about embracing your own. It's about standing tall in your truth, knowing that your worth is not determined by anyone else's approval. You have a purpose that is uniquely yours, and it cannot be fulfilled by trying to be someone you were never meant to be. It can only be fulfilled by stepping into your power, owning your story, and walking confidently in the direction of your own dreams. When you begin to release the weight of external expectations, something incredible happens. You start to soar. You start to create space for your own dreams, desires, and aspirations to take root. You begin to live with clarity, with purpose, and with the kind of freedom that only comes when you shed the need for external validation. The real power lies in trusting yourself enough to stop asking for permission to be who you are. When you do that, you step into a version of yourself that is unstoppable, unshakable, and fully alive. Vulnerability is often seen as a weakness, something to be avoided at all costs. We've been taught to hide our fears, our insecurities, and our struggles, believing that showing any form of vulnerability makes us less than, less capable, or less strong. But in truth, the opposite is true. There is an extraordinary strength in vulnerability, a power that comes from embracing our imperfections and standing in the fullness of who we are, flaws and all. To be vulnerable is to show up in the world as your authentic self, without the shield of pretense or the mask of perfection. It means allowing yourself to feel deeply, to experience the rawness of life without pretending to have it all together. It means daring to be seen in your truest form, even when the world may not understand, even when it may not fit into the neat boxes they've tried to place you in. Vulnerability is not about weakness, it's about courage. It's about having the bravery to be real in a world that often tells us to be anything but. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you open the door to true connection. It is in vulnerability that we find our shared humanity. It is in showing our struggles, our fears, and our scars that we invite others to do the same. Vulnerability allows us to connect on a deeper level, to form relationships that are not built on facades or shallow appearances, but on honesty and mutual understanding. It is through our vulnerabilities that we show the world our capacity for empathy, compassion, and love. We no longer have to hide in the shadows of perfection. Instead, we can walk boldly into the light, accepting ourselves as we are and inviting others to do the same. But embracing vulnerability requires a shift in perspective. It requires us to stop seeing vulnerability as a flaw and instead view it as a source of strength. Vulnerability is not about being exposed, it's about being open. It's about facing the fear of judgment and rejection and saying, I am willing to stand in my truth. No matter what it is, through this willingness to be open that we unlock our greatest power, the power to grow, to heal, and to transform. Vulnerability is the gateway to personal evolution. It allows us to confront our fears, to break through our limitations, and to move beyond the walls we've built around our hearts. When we embrace vulnerability, we give ourselves permission to grow. We allow ourselves to make mistakes, to stumble, to fall. And in doing so, we learn. We learn that failure is not the end, but simply a stepping stone on the path to success. We learn that our worth is not determined by our perfection, but by our resilience, our willingness to rise again after we've fallen. There is strength in knowing that you can be broken, that you can be wounded, yet still rise with even greater power. It is in our brokenness that we often find our greatest strength. Vulnerability also allows us to step into our power in the most authentic way possible. It is when we stop pretending to be something we are not, when we stop hiding behind walls of armor, that we fully step into our true power. We stop looking for external validation, because we no longer need to prove anything to anyone. We stand firm in the knowledge that we are enough just as we are. And that, my friends, is a strength that cannot be shaken. In the end, vulnerability is not about being weak. It is about being willing to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. It is about embracing who we are, our full, unfiltered selves, and knowing that our worth is not tied to our perfection, but to our authenticity. There is immeasurable strength in that. And when we step into that strength, we become unstoppable. Not because we are perfect, but because we are willing to be vulnerable, willing to be real, and willing to own our power in all its imperfect, beautiful glory. Perfectionism is a trap, a quiet, insidious force that convinces us we must be flawless in every way in order to be worthy, successful, or loved. It tells us that anything less than perfection is failure, that any mistake is a mark of shame, and that only when we reach the highest standard, whatever that might be, will we be enough. It feeds off our insecurities, constantly whispering in our ears that we're not doing enough, that we're not enough. But let me tell you, this perfectionism is a lie. It is a barrier to growth, a thief of joy, and a crippling force that holds us back from stepping into our true power. Defying perfectionism starts with understanding that perfection is an illusion. It doesn't exist, not in the way we often believe it does. We set these impossibly high standards for ourselves, thinking that if we just do everything right, we will be happy, successful, and fulfilled. But what happens when we don't meet those standards? What happens when we fall short? We feel defeated. We feel inadequate. We begin to believe that our worth is tied to our ability to be perfect, when in reality, our worth was never contingent upon achieving some idealized version of ourselves. The truth is, perfectionism stifles creativity, hinders progress, and makes us so focused on avoiding failure that we forget the importance of taking risks, making mistakes, and learning along the way. It keeps us locked in a cycle of self-criticism, never allowing us to feel truly proud of what we accomplish. We become so consumed with the fear of not being perfect that we never take the bold actions necessary to truly grow, to expand, to achieve anything meaningful in life. Perfectionism convinces us that the road to success is one of flawless execution. But the reality is, success is often built on failure, on mistakes, and on the lessons we learn when things don't go as planned. To defy perfectionism is to embrace imperfection, to welcome mistakes as part of the process of growth. It is about accepting that we will not always get it right, and that's perfectly okay. In fact, it is more than okay, it's necessary. Our imperfections, our flaws, and our mistakes are the very things that make us human. They are the things that teach us resilience, determination, and humility. Every time we fail and rise again, we become stronger, wiser, more capable. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn, and every misstep brings us one step closer to our goals, because it helps us refine our approach, build character, and discover new solutions. When we defy perfectionism, we free ourselves from the suffocating need to be flawless. We give ourselves permission to experiment, to try new things without the crippling fear of failure. We allow ourselves to be messy, to be real, and to make choices that align with who we truly are, not who we think we should be. We stop hiding behind the facade of perfection and embrace the beautiful, messy journey of becoming. We realize that life isn't about having all the answers or executing everything perfectly. It's about showing up, putting in the work, and having the courage to keep going no matter how many times we fall short. Letting go of perfectionism also means embracing self-compassion. Instead of beating ourselves up for not being perfect, we learn to be kind to ourselves, to treat ourselves with the same love and understanding we would offer a friend. When we make mistakes, we don't condemn ourselves, we celebrate the fact that we're trying, that we're growing, and that we're learning. We choose to focus on progress, not perfection. We give ourselves the grace to make mistakes, knowing that it's part of the process of becoming the person we are meant to be. Defying perfectionism is not about abandoning standards or striving for excellence. It's about shifting our mindset. It's about understanding that our value is not determined by our ability to be flawless, but by our willingness to show up, to take risks, and to give our best effort, knowing that perfection is not the goal. The goal is progress. The goal is growth. The goal is to become the best version of ourselves, flaws and all. And when we let go of the need for perfection, we unlock our true potential. Because we are finally free to be who we truly are, imperfect, yes, but also powerful, resilient, and unstoppable. In embracing your authentic self, you break free from the chains that have held you captive for far too long. You begin to realize that you are not defined by external expectations, nor are you bound by the need for perfection. You are defined by your courage to show up as you are, with all your imperfections, vulnerabilities, and strengths. When you stop seeking validation from others and start looking within, you discover the immense power that lies in being true to yourself.